Light is so important to video. One can spend their whole lives doing nothing but trying to figure out what light to put where in order to create a mood in an image. Light comes from a source, like the sun or a lamp, bounces off objects, passes through your camera's lens, and lands on the sensor where its intensity is registered. Bright light registers differently from darker light, and all your sensor does is map where that light falls and how strong it is. If all the light has a similar strength, your image is entirely lit. If there are strong fluctuations, your image will have high contrast. So why are shadows just as important as light? Memorable images are made more by the placement of light than the placement of the camera. Light reveals important things in your scene and allows your sensor to capture an image, but it tells the story as well. Light can be bright or low. It can have a sharp or soft edge. It can be broad or narrow. All of these tools can help you tell your story. Shadows add a third dimension to flat images. They give areas of separation and help define places as being in front or behind one another. They also draw our attention to certain places, either because the director wants us to pay attention to those places, or because the director is trying to fool us into missing something. Not all shadows are the same. Shadows can be sharp, or they can be soft. They can be natural or man-made. Lights reveal, and shadows conceal, so you want to use both. Shadows can add mystery, and they can also be used to highlight important details by hiding others. Master light, and you'll be well on your way to mastering video. Shadows help give the perception of a third dimension. They can be the precursor and the indicator. A shadow along with the wall of an alley tells us that someone is approaching. Is it a killer or a delivery person? The shadow gives us the opportunity of anticipation, and by creating space for things to hide, they also create mystery. In Ridley Scott's 1977 masterpiece Alien, a strange and positively deadly creature escapes in a spaceship. The crew knows that it's hiding in the medical lab, and they need to find it. The medical lab, though, is filled with shadows and dark places. The alien could be anywhere. The crew investigates with flashlights, and that becomes the additional lighting sources, slowly pushing the shadows back while the tension builds. Even when shooting the exact same set, a shift in lighting can change the mood dramatically. While brightly lit, nothing is hidden. Then, the same room again in the dark? Who knows what's in the shadows? Steven Spielberg did something similar in 1976's Jaws. When trying to answer the question, how do you make finding something mysterious in a place where you can see everything? The town's police chief and a marine biologist are on the ocean looking for a missing boat. Normally, you'd be able to see the boat from a mile away, but Spielberg decides to do the scene at night, where everything is in shadow, and using a giant flashlight to show only one small part of it at a time. The result, one of the most successful suspense scenes in film history. The sharpness of a shadow is controlled by two factors: the size of the light source and its distance from the subject. When lighting your scene, try to use a mixture of soft and sharp shadows. Start with total blackness. That way you know where all the light is coming from and you have control over it. And then add lights one at a time. Instead of using a softbox as your main light source, consider using it as a fill and using some more directional lights as your keys. Grids and snoots are light modifiers that throw narrow beams of light. You can get or make them in dimensions that will throw broader or more narrow beams. You can also put a grid on a softbox to make it more directional. The smaller the softbox, the more directional it'll be. Also, don't be afraid of using practicals, which are existing lights. If there's a lamp in the living room and you turn it on, it's called a practical. It produces light that, while it might not be beautiful, is familiar and doesn't call attention to itself. Film noir is deeply associated with the use of shadows to tell stories, partly because shadows are easier to create than sets. With some modest light modifiers, a good lighting designer can curve out places in a room to create mood and drive the story. A brightly lit, rather ordinary garage isn't a terribly compelling set, but often it's what you have to work with. Thinking that everything should be brightly and evenly lit is a common amateur mistake. Pros know that shadows add depth, mystery, and reality to a scene. Pros will also use shadows to direct a viewer's eye and give them clues about the passage of time and the weather, as well as a myriad of other things.
Continued learning and practice, as well as taking refreshers on the basics, will help keep your skills sharp. Check out our video courses to stay on top of your game. Find a course by visiting videomaker.com/courses or click the link in the description.